Hello and welcome to the ayeQ Answers podcast, where we talk about all things B2B growth. So, if that's what you're looking for, you're at the right place. And today I am very excited to have Josh Broward with us. Our topic is going to be ownership culture. So, the hidden multiplier behind startup growth. So we're really kind of focusing on that startup piece of the puzzle here. So Josh, thank you so much for joining me. We've had some great conversations, and I'm excited for you to share your wisdom with our listeners.
Awesome. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Let me introduce you quickly. So, Josh Broward is the CEO and co-founder of Wisdom Partners. Josh has spent his career helping leaders navigate organizational change, from healthcare systems to nonprofits to venture-backed startups. Today, he works with seed and Series A founders to build what he calls an ownership culture, one that helps companies scale without the founder becoming the bottleneck. And so, Josh, welcome. And when we were chatting before a few weeks ago, and you were introducing me to your ownership culture, it just resonated with me so much, being a founder myself. So I was excited for you to share that with our listeners. So ownership culture. Tell us what that is and how you define it.
Yeah, thank you. Uh, to be honest, I was a little skeptical of the phrase ownership culture at first. My co-founder and one of my oldest friends, Charles Jolly, who has built three or four venture-backed companies and to all the way to exit, he kept telling me, Josh, this is the secret to success in the startup world. This is the essence of good leadership for startups. And I listened, and I have a degree in organizational leadership, and I got to the point where I was like, I agree with what you're saying, but I'm not sure that's the right label. But then the more that we talked, there's not a better label for it. So ownership culture, it feels like it really is the right way to describe it. And so let me sort of unpack the definition that we have developed. Um, Ownership culture is when every individual in the organization is empowered to take decisive action within their area of responsibility in alignment with the mission. So if you kind of roll that backward, there's alignment to the mission. Everybody understands what we're trying to do as a company and specifically how this project aligns to the mission. Uh, and then there's accountability. So there's clarity on what the area of responsibility is, what good looks like, how success will be measured, when success will be measured. And then you can give people autonomy within that framework of alignment and accountability. And that, you might call it guided autonomy, it is what really creates acceleration for startups and really for all organizations.
Yeah, and you talk about um, just like you said, alignment, accountability, autonomy, and authenticity.
Yeah.
Um, ooh,
Authenticity is really the foundational layer underneath the other pillars. Because if you're not authentic as a leader, it all kind of falls apart anyway.
mhm. Yeah, and so when you're working with these early stage seed Series A companies, um, do you typically see founders that have been in leadership positions before, or is this the kind of a combination of maybe younger types of, very eager, brilliant, innovative minds that maybe don't have kind of the background of the leadership experience?
It's really some of both. Some like you who are experienced executives, but this is their first time being a CEO,
Hmm.
and others who you might say well, I guess then you shift down a little and you have others who have some leadership experience as a manager or director, uh, but but it's a whole different ball of wax when you're running the whole company. Uh,
Hmm.
and then the other category is individual contributors uh, who essentially had a great idea and are experts in their lane and succeed enough that all of a sudden they've got 5 or 10 people reporting to them. And I realize, oh, my job is way more about people than technology. And
Hmm.
so I, those are each in some ways separate. They're different transitions, but and the way people need to shift to get to ownership culture is a little different for each of those three, but the destination is pretty much the same.
So how do you unfold this culture? Because I can imagine, I mean, each four of those areas are significant in and of themselves. How do you unfold this in a one of these high growth aspirational companies that you engage with?
Yeah, great question. The first thing to work on is really alignment. It surprises me how many startups don't actually have a mission statement. And among those who do, 80 to 90% of them, the statement is useless
Hmm.
or nearly useless because
Nobody knows it.
yeah, it's way too long. Nobody knows it. You put it on a slide deck at some point and forgot about it. Even the CEO often can't say the mission statement. And or they try to the other way it gets useless is you try to make it all encompassing.
Hmm.
And so the often one of the first things we do as we're helping people implement ownership culture is really drill down to the heart of what they're trying to do. So, for example, one of our clients, I won't give anything away about who they are, but basically they serve two customer groups, and they felt like they wanted to keep both of them in their mission statement. Otherwise, it wouldn't be faithful to what they do. But the more we drilled down, uh, the more they realized actually their heart is with Group A, and they only serve Group B because that helps them serve Group A. Like they're helping make
Hmm.
connections between A and B, but really their heart is with Group A. So that was a clarifying moment for them, for the two founders, and they sort of reshaped their business philosophy to focus on Group A and really double down there. And the good news is Group A is the one who actually pays them. Group
Hmm.
B was like basically they were helping Group A find customers from Group B. And so when they focus their mission on that group, first of all, they feel more uh, attracted to it from their hearts because that's the group they really care about. And
Hmm.
and second, now their sales motion and even their service motion is more effective and more efficient because they're focusing on the right group of people.
Hmm.
But they wouldn't get there until we're like the question that really shifted for them is if you could only serve group A or group B, which one would you serve? And they're like, oh, group A, obviously. And then like I almost didn't have to say anything. They're just like, oh.
It's interesting because a couple things that struck me as you were speaking. It's like you get to this point where you have successfully created a business that is earning money. And when you started, it's the way you're making money today may be very different than you thought you were going to when you started the company. I don't care what your great idea is. When you start this process, it will be different. You will not know what it's going to look like at the end, right? It is evolving. You don't know all the answers when you're starting. You make assumptions about how your customers are going to like your product, how they're going to use it. all of these things, and all of a sudden you've been in this state where it's like, okay, we have to, our cash flow is king, right? We got to get some money in, and then you're scattered.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you get to a place where it's like, okay, what are we really focused on?
Mhm.
Right? And it is a discipline. It's difficult because you loved doing all these other things too, right? But you
Yeah.
have to focus. And when you focus, it's like there is clarity, right? All of a sudden, a lot of that stress of lots of activity, it goes away, right?
Mhm.
Because now it's focused on what do we have to accomplish? And like you said, who are we going to go after? Who who is out? We say it all the time, our ICP, right? Who is our ideal customer profile? But um, but that is a discipline and trying to focus in, and it's kind of the five whys. Why, getting there is it's difficult, but it's transformational, just like you said.
Yeah. It it's a challenge because the startup journey almost always necessarily involves a little chaos, a little bit of wandering, uh, scattered activity, like you described, because you're like, well, we can do this. It kind of works here. It kind of works over here. It kind of works over here. And you almost have to do some of that broad scope experimentation until you find, this is the either this is the area where it works best, or this is the area nobody else is serving.
Hmm.
And we can really go deep here. Sometimes your first attempt at a beachhead works, and God bless you, that's great. But a lot of times it takes several sort of stabs at it to find the one that is really the one that will push you forward.
Yeah, and I like that you started with alignment just from what we do. We work with a little bit larger companies in the B2B world, but even our methodology, our philosophy is always start with what the heck are you trying to do?
Yeah,
If you don't know what the heck you're trying to get to do, none of the other stuff matters.
right. That's right.
Um, and um, And I'd love to hear your thought. Our thought is always keep it as simple as possible, right? It's like do not over engineer this thing
Yeah.
because the more over engineered you get, the more people are not going to know what it is. And we used to call it the consulting binder on the shelf, right? It's like this thing this thick that's going to tell you
Yeah.
you go to market, nobody knows what the heck's in it, and nobody's going to take the time to read it.
Yeah.
Um, so, but it's interesting because even with larger companies, when we start there, then we start to go down, okay, how are you going to make money? Right?
Hmm.
That piece is usually it takes the most time because it's not crystal clear, even in
Yeah.
these larger companies. Sales is thinking about it one way, finance is thinking about it another. And when you can align all of these pieces around, okay, I have to
Mhm.
know what the heck I'm trying to do because nobody will know what they're trying to do or why they're trying to do it without that.
Yeah, I would say this may be uh too sort of high up the motivation chain for your work as for sales. I don't know. But one place we often start is just with the very simple question, what do you want? And
Hmm.
and sometimes people have like they're like, I haven't thought about that in a long time.
Mm.
Well, and other times, they start throwing out these numbers, and then it's like, okay, but why do you want that?
Hmm.
And it usually comes down to this is the kind of life I want to live. This is the kind of impact I want to make. This is what I want for my family. Um, and that process, then you can sort of reverse engineer the kind of business you need to build and the way you need to build it so you get that kind of outcome. So I think it could be helpful as well. Also, let me say, when we help leaders answer that question, what do I want? Then they're able to align that with what the business wants.
Mhm.
I'll get what I want when, as the business gets this, now I care from the inside about the business goals. And that creates a much more powerful buy-in and commitment than just rah rah, everybody, let's be number one in our region, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's I've been part of a few entrepreneurial organizations, and a lot of the mindset. And so this just struck me. Many quote unquote entrepreneurs are, I want to make $1 billion. That's what I want. And that's great. I'm not, no judgment, but that's very different than I want to build a great company.
Mhm.
Those are two very, very different things.
Yeah,
And what do you see? What do you see most often when you ask, what do you want?
that's a great question. I'm trying to my mental computer is analyzing.
I threw a curveball at you.
Often uh, it actually takes a little while to get deep enough to to see what they really want.
Mm,
Sometimes we'll talk one way to that path is to say, what do you want your life to be like 5 years after you exit? Not 5 years from now, because then they're thinking exit, but 5 years after exit. And then it's sort of like the business stuff is the actual function of the business is not the issue. The issue is what kind of life do I want to have? What kind of person do I want to be?
hmm
And that often helps them, the founder, think of themselves separate from the business, which
hmm
is really hard for most founders because the business feels like part of them, an expression of them. And so eventually, when we get down that process, it usually has to do with, uh, I, I would say, probably a few common cores: freedom, so financial and career freedom, uh, family or relationships, and impact. Those are
hmm
probably the core things. And so then, as we sort of reverse engineer, those are the things that are still important to them. Like, right, like, okay, so maybe that question was 10 years in the future, but freedom, relationships, and impact are important to me right now as a CEO. So, how do I live in a way that contributes to those volumes today, not just in the future?
hmm And as you were speaking, what you just described is one layer deeper than bazillion dollars a great company, right? Because then you have to say, well, why do you want, exactly like why do you want those things? And then
Right.
you get to what you're talking about. Is it freedom? Is it impact? Is it family? Um, so so yeah, so I'm seeing the cycle now. Um,
Let me
so
add one little thing.
mhm,
Sometimes what you find out is, well, with one of our clients, she described what she wanted and her like minimum, she had a range of acceptable outcomes for the exit and felt pretty anxious about it. Like she wasn't doing enough to get there. When we did her acceptable outcomes and a rough back of napkin valuation of the company and her equity, we're like, you're already at your minimum outcome. Like you already made it. Everything from here on out is gravy.
wow.
And
That's such a great story.
that just helped her, like, it just relieved a lot of stress because she was like, we have to get to here, we have to hurry, we have to get to this. And it's like, I mean, go do whatever you need to do for the business, but everything else is bonus now.
Hmm.
So I think founders and most business leaders put a lot of artificial pressure on themselves.
Oh, I don't know anybody like that. Um, so as you come to this aha moment with the founder or the CEO, um, then you have to say, okay, now you have some clarity about what they want, what their mission is. What that has to then be translated to everybody in the organization, as you mentioned at first.
Right. Right.
How do you make that happen?
So one of the keys is getting I call it a portable mission statement. And that means something that's simple enough and memorable enough, people can take it with them and use it to do their job. Uh, the mission statement goes back with them to their home office, to their desk. It goes on the plane in their suitcase because it has an easy handle. Um, so that usually means it needs to be 5 to 7 words, which is hard to get
Hmm.
a non-fluff, specific mission statement in that limited amount. You can sometimes stretch it to 10 or 15, but by the time you get to 15, you probably have 3 or 4 concepts in there. And it's like trying to carry a big bulky box that has a weird shape. Like there's nowhere to hold on to it. So you have to keep it small enough so that there's clear handles. And
I always think of Mark Twain. If I had more time, I would write a shorter letter.
yeah, that's right. I, so once you get that portable one, you use it all the time. It becomes your decision matrix. Does this help us blank, blank, blank?
So, okay, so now we have something that everybody in the organization can internalize,
Mhm.
right? We've got it crystallized. People understand it. How do you get the buy-in and the other pieces, the accountability and the autonomy?
Yeah, so I mentioned I'll do a callback to before. Um, if you help people describe their personal motivators, it might be putting their kids through college or buying a house or uh, establishing their own level of financial freedom, uh, or just they believe in the mission of the company because their aunt had cancer and you're trying to help with early detection or whatever. Uh,
Hmm.
if you connect that personal motivator to the company mission, that's the best way to get buy-in. Um, but then the second question is connecting the mission to every project. So, all right, we're doing this new campaign or we're building this new feature. How does that contribute to the mission? What is the mission of this project that aligns it to uh, to this to the company mission? And once you have that clarity, uh, then you can start asking yourself, how will we know if we achieve this? Like what does good look like, and how do we measure that success? So uh, if my job is uh, customer success, how do we even know if I'm doing a good job? Like, is it retention rate? Is it customer satisfaction? Is it uh, what do you call the land and expand sales? I know there's an official term for that, but it's escaping me right now. Uh, what what is uh, what's the metric we're using? And so we decide on that. I and usually if it's my thing that I am responsible for, I should be the primary driver for what the metric is. Now, of course, my boss is going to have say and help me shape it, but if I choose the framework and the goal, I then I am personally more committed to it. The more junior they are, the more you have to help them with it. But the more experienced they are, the more they can come up with it on their own, and it's really solid. So, but it should rarely be where a top down, this is your metric, this is the goal within the metric, hit it or else. You know,
Yeah, that doesn't usually work so well.
yeah,
Um, but I've been in a lot of organizations where that's exactly how it happens.
yeah,
Um, and culture is very different from organizations that don't do it that way.
that's right.
Um, who said culture eats strategy for lunch? Somebody said that, and I can't remember. It's escaping me. I'm gonna all
Uh, I I have was it Tom Peters? That I don't think that's the right one. I have actually used that quote in presentations before, and I can't
Mhm.
think of it right now. But
We'll think of it by the end. It'll come back in. But uh, so so a lot of folks think culture is just it is maybe it's just the way we react to that word, but I think of culture as how your entire business runs,
mhm.
right? I mean, we can have the same process in two companies with two different cultures, and it's one's successful, one's unsuccessful.
I, one of the best definitions of culture that I've heard is how we do things.
Mm-hmm.
It's just how we do things around here.
Mm-hmm.
That's whatever that, however you describe that, that's pretty much what your culture is.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the words on the wall.
Mm-hmm. So when you're so you've talked about a couple of things, here's my metric, here's how I'm going to achieve that metric. You also talked a little earlier about, here are we have these projects, right? How do you define the projects, right? Is that, you know, eh, eh, we tend to be very collaborative, right? And you tell me if you agree with this or not, but I have this saying, it's easy to be right, it's hard to be productive,
Mm,
right? Because sometimes it's better, even if you think you know the right answer, to keep your dang mouth shut, right? So first of all, you're probably going to come up with a better answer.
mm.
So I mean, I'll throw that out at you. What's your reaction to that?
Uh, so there, I'll get philosophical for a minute.
Good. I love philosophical.
I I did a research fellowship this last summer where we studied this one particular company called ServiceMaster. And they were a Christian company, and part of their work was informed by a uh, a theological or philosophical principle from Catholic social justice. Anyway, the principle is called uh, the principle of I think I might say the wrong word, subservience, uh, but I'm not sure that. Anyway, I'll describe what it means. Uh,
Okay, I'll probably come up with the word because I'm Catholic, so I
okay,
ought to know it.
uh, so it's sub something, but basically,
Probably not subservient is my guess.
that's probably not. Uh, but the basic idea is you push the power and the decision making as close to the action as possible. And so it's used in the European Union actually to let as many as to let the individual countries decide as much as possible.
Hmm.
And you only make decisions at the top when it's necessary for efficiency. Um, but as much as possible, the people doing the action have as much autonomy as they can. So that uh, That actually works really well in companies. And so, as much as possible, we want to push as much decision-making power down the chain uh, as we can, uh, so that the people closest to the action who understand the action best have the most authority to decide how to do the work. And so often that looks like uh, my co-founder Charles describes it as uh, first you draw the box, then you define the box, uh, then you put a name in the box. And so what often happens is if you're describing like an area of responsibility. So uh, for example, you might say one area of responsibility is fraud prevention. Uh, okay, what does that look like? It means whenever we make a shipment, we've done our due diligence to authenticate this customer is for real and their payment is really coming. Uh, okay, so that's the box. Now we define the box. What does it look like to do our due diligence? It means we're going to do this, 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 and this, and we're going to have 99.9% accuracy on all shipments. So we're going to reduce fraud to 0.01% or something like that. Okay, that's defining the box. Now, who is responsible for it? And so whoever is responsible for it should be involved as much as possible in the defining the box as well as putting their own name. They're the ones who write their name in the box. It's as much as possible a volunteer more than a voluntold, or a top-down directive. This is your thing. You better make it work. But it's more of like, this is what we need help with. This feels like a good fit to you. Can you commit to owning this thing? Okay, now let's decide what it should be like.
Mm-hmm.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, yes. Of course, that, I mean, this is helping me too. I'm like, did we do that? So I love it. Uh, where where do you see companies? So let's talk about the fourth piece. We've talked about alignment, we've talked about accountability, we've talked about
Autonomy.
thank you, autonomy. What about authenticity? And I have some thoughts here, so I'm baiting you.
Okay. So well, I guess I should say authenticity is frequently misunderstood. Sometimes people think of it as that it's primarily about talking about your feelings, uh,
Hmm.
or or having integrity, uh, living according to your values, and those can for sure be part of it. What we mean by authenticity, it ties back into ownership culture. So it is owning who you are and your role in the company and your performance. So one way to think of it is I have to own my stuff if I'm going to expect you to own your stuff. And so that means also we own our mistakes, and talk about them and build repairs as much as possible.
Hmm.
And so the foundation for authenticity is self-awareness. So we do a lot of work cultivating self-awareness. And then part of that self-awareness is understanding what our own sweet spot, our own like strongest area. And for CEOs, part of it is understanding what is the work that only they can truly do. Because as the company grows, uh, that box shrinks, and they
Hmm.
have to actively give away things that drain them, or don't make money for the company, don't help the company succeed directly, and keep the things that add them energy and that they're best at and that help the company most. If they don't do that, what ends up happening a lot of times is they actually delegate the things that they're good at, because that's what they're like, oh, I spend so much time working on this. And so they delegate it, and all they're left with is the stuff they're not very good at and that they hate doing. So part of authenticity is a deep self-understanding. And most people can't get there by themselves. They need a thought partner to process
Hmm.
that with them.
Hmm. Yeah, just thinking of, there's especially when you're still growing, you're still small and you're still growing, every single person on your team is critical.
Mhm.
And, when you talk about giving away something, you have to be in a position of trust,
That's right.
right? That person is going, you trust that person enough that you give it to them and they're going to run with it, right? The worst thing in my experience that can happen is I trusted that person to go do it and they didn't do it. And they didn't tell me they weren't going to do it. Right? That's like worst case scenario because at least if you tell me you can't do it, I can do something about it. So, I mean, what are your thoughts there?
Usually, so usually that is a symptom of lack of alignment and lack of accountability. It's a common error for CEOs, and some so-called leadership experts will say something like, hire good people and then get out of the way. Uh, that is a high risk proposition.
Mm-hmm.
uh, because those good people might have a different vision of what needs to happen than you do, and it might not be in alignment with the direction for the company. And if you get out of the way, you don't actually know if they're making progress.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's why we say it's really sequential: alignment, accountability, then autonomy. And so it's really important to have a regular cadence of check-ins so that you can maintain that alignment and accountability. Otherwise, you end up either one side, you end up in drift, where you just gave too much autonomy and all of a sudden you find out we're not aligned now.
Mm-hmm.
Or you end up in grinding, where people are working really, really hard, just not on the right or most important things.
What haven't we covered about your ownership culture? Because I have another question, but I want to make sure that
Yeah.
we've kind of explored all the nuance of
Well, I,
that chart that I still see that you showed to me. I'm like, I love that chart. Tells us that, the Venn diagram.
yeah, the chart sort of breaks down ownership culture into those three pillars as overlapping circles. Alignment, accountability, and autonomy. And in the middle is acceleration. And then there's sort of a ditch between each two circles that are common pitfalls that founders can fall into. I think the part that we maybe haven't talked enough about is acceleration, why
Mm,
this makes such a big difference. When everybody on the team feels genuinely aligned and uh, accountable for metrics they personally care about, and then empowered to do whatever it takes to hit those metrics, all of a sudden motivation goes up, productivity goes up. We're all pulling in the same direction. Most of the time, uh, in most companies, you might have a goal over here, and everybody's trying generally moving in that direction, but their arrows might be like this, like that, like they're not actually pointed at the goal. They're just directionally, vaguely moving in that direction. But if you get everybody where all their arrows are lined up, the force behind that effort, it is multiplied tremendously.
hmm Yeah.
And
Uh,
so what what happens for CEOs is they realize that they're not the bottleneck in the company anymore.
Mhm.
And there's almost a magical synergy that happens as the company is empowered to move forward uh, with with only their guidance, not their putting their shoulder to the wheel to actually turn the crank.
Mhm. So, um, here at ayeQ, as we have our platform supports the systematization ooh, that's a very long word. We systematize the process around what is your go-to-market strategy? What are you trying to do? Who are you selling to? How are you going to make money? And then each of the leadership team who plays into that then defines their objectives, their strategic initiatives, and then it all flows down. Because one of our philosophies is if everybody knows why they're doing what they're doing, you're going to have so much better culture, buy-in, motivation, and it's very consistent with what you're talking about. It's just that is for a larger organization where you need the systemic support. When you're working with this smaller kind of high growth startups, what support do they need? From a systems perspective? A spreadsheet would do it, or
Well, there are a few different kind of so we talk about ownership culture as a combination of mindset and systems that empower everybody to take decisive action. So it's mindset for the leader, but it's also systems for the company or for the leaders. And if you don't have the mindset, all the systems in the world aren't going to fix it. It just becomes talk, and
Mhm,
they're going to come in and say, "Yeah, I know this is the system, but dang it, do it this way."
mhm,
And if you have the mindset without the systems, it it becomes wishful thinking because you can't actually make it happen.
mhm,
Um, so some of the systems uh, that are needed, there are a handful. One is an area of responsibility registry, and we call it an AOR, where you're specifically listing everything the company does and who's responsible for it. So it might be like I talked earlier about defining the box. So it might
mhm,
be a whole bunch of boxes with little boxes inside them, and uh, but you're moving down everything that happens. Somebody is primarily responsible for it. Then, so that helps. And usually, if something goes wrong, it's because there is a responsibility that didn't have a name on it. It may not have even been on our chart. Uh, the fraud example I gave was one of our clients. They experienced fraud and realized, oh, we didn't specifically name somebody to make sure this doesn't happen.
mhm,
Uh, it was sort of it was the finance team, but it wasn't any individual's job on the finance team. Uh,
mhm,
so uh, so that's part of it. Another important system is we call them high performance meetings. So it's a particular way of structuring not just a meeting agenda, but the dialogue around the meeting. So the core agenda goes out with as much information as possible a couple of days before the meeting, and everybody talks about it in writing on a shared document before the meeting, sharing whatever background information they need, whatever questions they have. Then when the meeting comes, you're actually ready to make decisions. You don't have to, there's no like reading reports and none of that stuff. It's just we have what we need, let's make the decision. Or we don't have what we need, who's responsible for getting that?
I absolutely love that. And I used to say, so many leadership team meetings, which is, by the way, your most expensive meeting of the week or whatever period you have that meeting. All of your most expensive resources are sitting in a room, spending an hour, 2 hours, however long your leadership team meeting is. And I have been in so many meetings where I was read a status report. Everybody just showed up and just said everything they're doing.
Hmm.
And it would drive me absolutely bananas. I was like, I could have, you didn't need to, I read, right? I can read.
I
I
can read
don't need to
faster
go
than you
into
can
the thing
talk.
and have it read to me.
Yeah,
So it's interesting that you say that. And then uh, I don't mean to be plugging maybe I'm plugging the ayeQ platform, but
by the
we
way.
specifically have a leadership team management module.
Mm,
How does that module work? Everybody has an area where they go and they put in, these are the things that the leadership team needs to know. It is absolutely not tell me everything you did or give me a status report. No,
hmm,
only tell me what everybody else in the room needs to know.
hmm,
Then tell us the objectives for the quarter or action items, green, yellow, red. Anything that's red, do you need help?
hmm.
Any issues you have? What are they? And do we need to discuss them in the meeting? And then it takes all of that input and it sinks it into a single agenda. So everybody can see the agenda before they get to the meeting. And then it's like, okay, I don't, we are not reviewing stuff when we get into the meeting. We're using the time to solve problems,
Yeah.
right? Because that is worthy of how expensive that meeting is.
Yes.
And I still remember being in a meeting, right? We had a development team that was developing the platform at the time. This was years ago, sitting in a meeting and saying, if I have to hear everybody's status report read to me, I'm going to freak out. And that's what it was.
Yeah. Yeah. It takes it it actually takes a lot of effort to do a good meeting.
Hmm.
It's worth it because it's, as you said, they're expensive. And also, when you actually have a good meeting, they're very productive.
Hmm.
Uh, but it's a discipline, and you can't put it off. You can't wait until the day before the meeting, or worse, the hour before the meeting, and throw together an agenda. Even if you're a great fly by the seat of your pants leader,
Hmm.
you in one organization, there were particular reasons why this group made decisions very slowly. Uh, but one thing I learned the hard way is, for us to make good decisions, 1 month at the board meeting, we had to introduce the issue and not discuss it.
Mm.
Just say, this is what you need to be thinking about. Next month, we're going to talk about this. Then in month two, we have a long agenda, like historical, a debrief on all the issues relating to the issue, and then we talk about the issue. But in month two, it's very clear, we're not making a decision today. No matter what we think, no matter if we're all in agreement, we will not make a decision today. And so then people can argue, so to speak, with much less emotion. And then in month three, we made a decision if we were
Hmm.
in agreement, or we punted and said, we're not ready for this. Now, that's
Hmm.
super slow for the startup world. Uh, but I think the concept is helpful, because we need some kind of rhythm to frame a discussion with a little less pressure, and get all the information we need and think about it, and then make a decision. Otherwise, we're making a decision and it's all tangled up with pressure and information gathering that's half done, and uh, lots of stuff like that. I mean, of course, sometimes you have to make decisions with incomplete information, but you don't have to make unforced errors in that.
Hmm. It's interesting because as I'm thinking about you can tell I'm thinking about one meeting in particular, right? Um, but it occurred to me that the culture enables the type of meeting you just talked about,
Mhm.
right? Because the leadership team needs to feel secure enough that they don't feel like they need to show up to a meeting and prove they've done a lot of stuff. Because that's what that type of meeting that I described, reading the status report, that's what I did this. I'm very busy, right? And
Yeah,
but what you're talking about is we are solving problems together, and that is a completely different culture.
that's right. Yeah.
So, Josh, I just realized what time it was. Like, whoops. But I know we could talk about this for hours, I know, but we are going to have to wrap it up. So if a founder is listening today and wanted to start building more ownership on Monday morning, what's the very first thing you would tell them to do?
Every task in the organization gets a directly responsible individual and only one, not a team.
Hmm.
That's the easiest way to get started.
So, Josh, you are wonderful. And if people, I'm sure there are a lot of folks out there like, I need Josh, right? So, how can they learn more about Wisdom Partners? How can they get in touch with you? How can you help more folks?
Thank you. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. So if you message me there, I will reply. I also our website is wisdompartners.llc. We have a blog where we try to post 2 or 3 times a week. Most of the stuff we talked about today, we've written about. And so you
Mhm.
can dig in there to if you want to learn more. And I will we'll take a meeting with almost anybody. So um, we'd love to talk to you. Just feel free to reach out.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, thank you again, Josh, for joining us. And we'll be talking again real soon.
Thanks, Dana. It's great to be here. Great conversation.
Likewise. All right. We'll see you next time.